Hello, welcome to V35. This is a video on cancer. What is cancer? And you see the answer already below here. Cancer is a disease of mitosis. And that might seem odd because you think of cancer like lung cancer or breast cancer or skin cancer, and you don't think of it as a mitosis disease. And really, how could you have a disease of mitosis? We'll look at that in this video as we explore what cancer is and how it comes about. When you think about cancer as a disease of mitosis, really cancer begins when apparently normal cells grow uncontrollably and spread to other parts of the body. This might be a hard thing to hear, but when you develop cancer, cancer starts in one of your cells. One of your cells goes rogue, and because of mistakes in the DNA, it begins to grow uncontrollably. So the result of mitosis and mitosis and more mitosis and more mitosis is we form a bunch of cells that are all wrong, that are all rogue, called a tumor. Now, you've heard of benign versus malignant tumors. A benign tumor is a collection of rogue cells that are actually encapsulated, that are going to be inside of some healthy tissue, so they really can't spread. They're kind of like in a room where they can't get out. They can push on the walls of the room, but they can't get out. So that's a benign tumor. Still a tumor, but it's benign, which means it's not going to spread. A malignant tumor is one that is not encapsulated and is therefore invasive. These cells can grow in different places because they're not in a room, they're not in a capsule, and they may end up spreading into your bloodstream or lymphatic system. And we have a term for that you'll see in just a minute. But cancer can really be of two different types in general. It can be benign, that is walled off, or malignant, which means it can spread. Benign tumors can still be dangerous, even though they're not going to spread, because if they get bigger and bigger and bigger, they can start to push on blood vessels, for example. So how does a cell start off and become cancerous? We'll look at that mechanism more in just a second, but what you see here is a case of a malignant tumor started from a single cell. There was a single cell that had a DNA problem, and we'll look at where that came from in just a moment. But it became 2 cells, which became 4 cells, which became 8 cells, and so forth. And now we have this tumor in the breast, and you're seeing here this yellow stuff represents glandular tissue. When we progress, we see the cancer starts to invade. It may invade the glands. It may ultimately invade into blood vessels or lymphatic system. And that's when it gets particularly dangerous, because this term we refer to as metastasis means to spread. How does cancer get from the breast to your brain or from the breast to the liver? It travels through the lymphatic system or the blood vessels, and cancer cells are going to end up traveling around the body, getting off at some point, and maybe growing in the liver and then forming a tumor in the liver. So metastatic cancer is a cancer that's spreading from one site to another. So how does a cancer start? A cancer is caused by ultimately a gene disorder. That is, there's a mistake in the DNA in some cell for some reason. And it's not just any DNA, but the genes that are the ones that control the cell cycle, how fast that cell goes through the cell cycle. So mutations cause, in this case, they're causing damage to genes which actually regulate how fast the cells divide. What causes this to happen? Certain chemicals, environmental exposure, such as UV radiation, chemicals like we find in cigarette smoke, chemicals like we find in some preservatives, chemicals that we find in a variety of places in manufacturing. These can do it. Viruses can cause our DNA to change and actually contribute to cancer. You're probably familiar with cancer of the cervix being mostly caused by a particular kind of virus. So anything that causes a change to the DNA is a mutagen, but particular chemicals cause particular changes to particular segments of our DNA that control how fast our cells divide. These are the ones that we associate with cancer. There's really two kinds of genes that we're talking about here that are involved with cancer, and we'll try to make this as simple as possible. There are these genes that are called proto-oncogenes. They're the ones that control how fast the cell is dividing. These actually stimulate cell division. So remember those checkpoints? If the proto-oncogenes are correct, you're going through the checkpoints at just the proper rate. If you damage that, it's kind of like mashing on the gas pedal, where now all of a sudden the cell's going to divide uncontrollably. So when these are mutated, they're called oncogenes. Onco means cancer. So we actually are born with gas pedals that are partially down, that are causing the cells to divide. However, if you damage those, now it goes a lot faster, and now we have cancer. The other set of genes we have that are involved with cancer are called tumor suppressor genes, and these are the genes that turn off cell division in healthy cells. Let's say you have a wound. There it is. You have a wound, and you cut yourself. The cells on either side of the wound are going to grow back together again, and then when the cells touch, they stop dividing. They know we fixed the wound, there's no more cell division needed. So healthy tumor suppressor genes are actually good because they tell, again, the cell cycle how fast to go. But if they're mutated, it's like they don't know when to stop. And it's like if you removed the brake pedal from your car, then you're not going to stop. So think about this. If your gas pedal gets mashed down hard, cells are going to be divided, or your car rather, is going to go too fast. If there's no brake pedal, you can't stop. And so if there's enough damage to the genes that regulate cell division, it's like mashing down the gas pedal and pulling out the brake. The cells divide uncontrollably. What is cancer but a disease of cell division? And let me come back up here. Sorry. There we go. So I just want to give you one example of this kind of mechanism. There is a gene that scientists know a lot about called P53, and it affects one part of the cell cycle. Remember, you saw that chart that went like this. One part down here at the bottom was the G1 checkpoint. Don't worry about the name, but that's the one that says, let's see how you've grown as a cell, and if everything is okay, you get to go on to the next phase where you can divide your DNA. Great. In its normal action, if it's working normally, it detects abnormal DNA, some mutated DNA, and tells that cell, stop. You're no longer going to be dividing. You have to quit. If that gene, though, becomes damaged, then there's nothing stopping that cell from going on to the next phase. If you have a security guard outside of a building and you walk up to it and you show him your ID and you have the right marker, you're allowed to go in. If you have the wrong marker, he tells you to stop. But if the security guard isn't there and you have the wrong marker, you get to walk in and do damage. So P53 is a really important protection gene for us, which helps us prevent cells from dividing if they have damaged DNA. Here's what it looks like. If you have normal P53 and you get some damage to your DNA, like we would associate with the sun, the P53 protein that's made from that gene basically fixes that, and if it can be fixed, the cells are allowed to continue. If not, if the damage is bad, the P53 gene causes that cell to die, causes it to commit cell suicide. That's a good thing if the cell's screwed up. So if it's working well, that's how it's supposed to happen. If the gene itself is damaged, then it's going to allow some cells that are actually wrong to divide, like there's no security guard there, and we end up with a cancer cell that's now going to make 2 cells and then 4 cells and continue. So You may just want to Google P53 and see what's going on there. This is a really important gene. We think that it might be involved in about half of human cancers. So if we can figure out how to fix this, if it gets damaged, it's really going to be helpful to prevent cancer. In fact, it's responsible, damaged P53, for lots of our skin cancers, including melanoma, which is a highly fatal form of skin cancer. I just want to show you this, and it's not meant to really gross you out as much as it is just to give you an idea that kind of the effect of cancer. Lung cancer, 87% of lung cancer cases occur in smokers. Why? The chemicals, the 4,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke, many of them cause damage to DNA, cause damage to proto-oncogenes, or cause damage to tumor suppressor genes, and therefore you develop these large masses. These masses are cancerous, and of course, because the lungs are so vascular, there's so many blood vessels in there, cancer cells jump in the bloodstream, end up somewhere else, and result in a high number of deaths. On average, smokers die 12 years younger than non-smokers because, for every person that, oh yeah, my friend Joe smoked for, 30 years and didn't get cancer. For every Joe out there, there's going to be lots of other people who smoke for a short period of time, damage themselves, took them a long time to grow and cause cancer, but they will develop cancer in those cases. Just showing you over here, this is the metastatic nature of cancer. You see the metastasis. These cells have found their way into the bloodstream now, and now they're going to spread and go elsewhere. This is just showing you a mastectomy. We can get into discussions about cancer more in class. The rate of cancer, of breast cancer in women, is actually increasing, and we actually don't know why. There are some very effective treatments, but as you can see, it can be rather disfiguring to have to remove a breast because of cancer there. And this is just showing you a cancerous tumor. These are nasty things, and I don't want to look at it anymore. So just to sum up here, what happens in cancer treatment? We in cancer treatment, have to target the cells the best we can. So we use different things. We'll use radiation. The radiation zaps, if we can target it well. It damages the DNA of cancer cells because it damages the DNA of cells that grow really quickly. But it also damages the cells of our own normal cells that grow really quickly, including things like hair or our stomach lining, which is why people who have radiation therapy and chemotherapy often end up with losing their hair and feeling very nauseous, because anything that damages fast-growing cancer cells will also damage fast-growing regular cells, and cells of your stomach and cells that make up your hair are among those two. Surgery, of course, is to go in and remove the cancerous tissue, and one therapy that's becoming more and more interesting to scientists is immunotherapy, where we train your cells to be more recognizing of cancer cells. Because if a cancer cell starts off deep in your liver or deep in your brain or deep in some tissue, if your immune system could recognize it and kill it before it spread, you wouldn't get sick and die from cancer. So there are some experimental therapies looking at immunotherapy to see if we can eventually train our bodies to recognize cancer cells even sooner. And prevention and survival, there are many things that can be done to decrease the risk of cancer, to decrease the risk of damaging our DNA. Not smoking, exercising, avoiding exposure to the sun, eating high fiber diets, performing self-exams, BSC for women, breast self-exam, TSC, testicular self-exams for men. These are going to be really important in recognizing changes that might indicate a possible cancer. And also going to a doctor regularly enough that that you're being screened appropriately at different times in your life for different kinds of cancer. I want to end with this one thought rather, and that is, people hear cancer and they assume that someone's going to die because they've been diagnosed with cancer. Most cancer people who have cancer diagnosis, most of them live. Our therapies and treatments now for cancer are so much better than they used to be, but sadly, we do lose millions of people each year to different kinds of cancer. So certainly it's a focus of a lot of research, and we are going to spend some time in class talking a little bit more about it. But ultimately, I want you to realize this. It's really a disease of cell division. That's it. We're going to do one more video on meiosis, and then we'll do some assignments. Thanks.